A nurse noticed that the 87-year-old elderly woman she was caring for always appeared with bruises. Suspicious, she placed a hidden camera in the bedroom frame. The next day, she couldn't finish watching the recording. Amelia Williams adjusted her badge on the white uniform for the third time while waiting at the entrance of the Green Mansion, an imposing three-story building in the city's most upscale neighborhood. Her fingers firmly held the bag with her documents, her heart beating with the expectation of starting a new job that would finally pay the overdue bills. The ornate iron gate opened with a metallic creak, and she walked along the Portuguese stone pathway, admiring the perfectly trimmed gardens and marble fountains that decorated the way. Every detail of that property demonstrated a wealth she had never seen up close, from the Italian sculptures to the bushes trimmed in perfect geometric shapes. The main door, a massive piece of dark wood with golden details, stood before her like the entrance to a new chapter in her life. Amelia took a deep breath, smoothed her uniform one last time, and rang the golden bell. "First day, Amelia, show your best," she thought, straightening her posture. A hopeful smile appeared on her face. The door opened, revealing a tall and imposing man with perfectly combed grey hair and an impeccable Italian suit, who examined her from top to bottom with cold, calculating eyes. Theodore Green was 55 years old, but looked younger, with the rigid posture of someone accustomed to leading business meetings and closing million-dollar contracts. His severe expression showed no trace of cordiality, only a silent assessment that made Amelia feel as if she were being interviewed again. He stepped aside, allowing her entry with an impatient gesture of his hand, without uttering a word of welcome. The entrance hall was magnificent, with a crystal chandelier hanging from the high ceiling and an Italian marble floor that reflected the morning light. The smell of beeswax and fresh flowers created a refined atmosphere that Amelia only knew from decorating magazines. "You must be the new nurse," said Theodore, his deep voice echoing through the space. Amelia nodded, feeling her mouth suddenly dry. Before she could properly introduce herself, a soft sound of wheels sliding over marble drew her attention to the side corridor. An elderly lady in a wheelchair emerged from the shadows, moving with the grace of someone who had once been the absolute mistress of that house. Mrs. Charlotte Green was 87 years old, with snow-white hair tied in an elegant bun that highlighted her delicate and aristocratic features. She wore a sky-blue wool ensemble that matched her still vivacious eyes, and a pearl necklace adorned her thin neck. Her hands, marked by time but still elegant, rested on a cashmere blanket on her lap. Amelia immediately noticed the contrast between the sun's coldness and the warmth that emanated from the elderly woman's gentle smile. "You must be Amelia, dear. Welcome to our home," said Charlotte, her voice soft as velvet. Amelia felt her chest warm with that heartfelt reception. Theodore rolled his eyes impatiently and positioned himself behind his mother's wheelchair, his hands gripping the handles with more force than necessary. The man seemed irritated by his mother's cordiality, as if it were a display of weakness he did not approve of. Amelia noticed the sudden change in atmosphere when he began pushing the chair toward the living room, his heavy steps echoing on the marble. The room was even more luxurious than the entrance hall, with noble wood furniture, paintings that certainly were worth fortunes, and a Persian rug that covered much of the floor. Charlotte extended her trembling hand to reach the teacup on the side table, but her fingers faltered in the movement. The fine porcelain escaped her control, spilling the amber liquid onto the red and gold rug. "Mother, for God's sake, how hard is it to pay attention to what you're doing?" exploded Theodore, his voice laden with frustration. Amelia felt her stomach tighten at that unnecessary reprimand. Without hesitating, Amelia immediately knelt beside the puddle of tea, taking a clean cloth from her bag and beginning to absorb the liquid before it permanently stained the rug. Her hands worked efficiently as she tried to ease the situation, feeling Theodore's heavy gaze on her back. The Persian fabric was soft under her fingers, and she took extra care not to rub too hard and damage the delicate fibers. Charlotte watched with a mixture of gratitude and embarrassment, her cheeks flushed with the shame of having caused that trouble. Theodore crossed his arms, his shadow hovering over Amelia as she worked, as if mentally timing how long she would take to solve the problem. The silence in the room was tense, broken only by the sound of the old wall clock marking the seconds. "I hope you're more competent than the last nurse. My mother needs special care, not friendship, Theodore said with disdain. Amelia bit her lower lip to avoid responding. Charlotte discreetly extended her hand, while Amelia was still kneeling, her fragile fingers lightly touching the nurse's shoulder in a gesture of consolation and gratitude. The touch was almost imperceptible, but carried a silent message of solidarity that Amelia immediately understood. The elderly woman leaned slightly, taking advantage of the fact that her son had turned to answer his ringing phone, and whispered something that only Amelia could hear. Her lips barely moved, as if she were afraid of being reprimanded again for any sound she made. Amelia finished cleaning the carpet and stood up, putting the dirty cloth in a plastic bag she had brought in her purse. Theodore ended the call and turned his attention back to them, his critical gaze examining the carpet for any trace of the stain. "Thank you," Charlotte murmured, her voice almost inaudible. Amelia smiled discreetly, feeling an instant connection with that gentle lady. The following hours passed with Amelia being instructed about Charlotte's rigorous medication routine, while Theodore listed every detail with the precision of a general planning a battle. He showed where the blood pressure medications were kept, the vitamin supplements, the painkillers for joint pain, each with a specific time that could not be altered. Amelia noted everything in her small notebook, her neat handwriting recording each instruction, while Theodore watched her like a hawk. The house had a military routine that seemed to suffocate any spontaneity, with fixed schedules for everything, from meals to rest periods. Charlotte remained silent throughout the explanation, her eyes wandering to the window as if her mind were elsewhere. The tension in the air was palpable, and Amelia could feel that there was something unspoken hovering between mother and son. "Any mistake and you're out, understood?" Theodore warned dryly. Amelia nodded, swallowing the indignation rising in her throat. When Theodore finally left for the office, muttering something about important meetings and pressing business, Amelia felt as if she could breathe again. The atmosphere of the house changed instantly, as if a heavy cloud had been removed, allowing sunlight to enter through the windows. Charlotte visibly relaxed in her chair, her shoulders losing the rigidity she had maintained throughout her son's presence. Amelia approached gently, crouching to be at the elderly woman's eye level, establishing a more human and less formal connection. Her hands rested softly on the arms of the wheelchair, careful not to invade Charlotte's personal space. The lady smiled, and her blue eyes shone with a vivacity that had been hidden moments before. "He's not bad, you know. He's just always very stressed with business," Charlotte said, as if she needed to justify her son's behavior. Amelia noticed the sadness behind those words. Bath time came after lunch, and Amelia prepared everything with special care, checking the water temperature and arranging the soft towels. Charlotte's ensuite bathroom was spacious, adapted with support bars and a special seat in the shower, demonstrating that at least the elderly woman's physical needs were met. Amelia helped Charlotte undress with delicacy and professionalism, always keeping a sheet over the intimate parts to preserve her dignity. It was then that she noticed the purplish marks on the lady's arms, some already yellowed by time, others with the purplish hue of more recent bruises. Her heart tightened at seeing those marks that clearly were not the result of accidental falls, as they had the unmistakable shape of fingers. Amelia maintained a neutral expression, but inside a genuine concern began to grow. "Mrs. Charlotte, these bruises on your arms, how did they happen?" she asked in a soft voice. Charlotte quickly looked away, her body stiffening. The elderly woman pulled her arms close to her body, trying to cover the marks with her hands, a defensive gesture that Amelia recognized from her years of experience. Charlotte looked at the bathroom tile as if it were the most interesting thing in the world, completely avoiding eye contact with the nurse. Her lips trembled for a moment before forming a forced smile that didn't reach her eyes. Amelia could see the lady's internal conflict, the struggle between wanting to tell the truth and the fear of what might happen if she did. The warm water fell gently, creating a curtain of steam that made the moment even more intimate and conducive to confidences. But Charlotte remained silent for long seconds, her fingers nervously drumming on the edge of the seat. "I'm clumsy, dear. Age doesn't forgive," Charlotte finally murmured. Amelia felt a lump form in her throat, recognizing the lie. Amelia continued the bath with even more gentleness, her hands careful as she washed Charlotte's white hair, softly massaging her scalp. The lady closed her eyes, allowing herself to relax under the loving care, something she clearly didn't experience often. Amelia noticed other marks on her body, some on her back, others on her legs, all in different stages of healing. Her experience as a nurse told her that this pattern wasn't normal, wasn't the result of falls or common household accidents, but she knew she needed to gain Charlotte's trust before she could truly help her. She wrapped the elderly woman in a soft, warm towel, drying her with gentle movements that demonstrated care and respect. "You remind me of someone dear. You have a gentleness in your eyes that warms my heart," Charlotte said suddenly. Amelia smiled, feeling an even greater responsibility to protect this lady. The rest of the afternoon passed with a tense tranquility, Amelia helping Charlotte with her physiotherapy exercises, always attentive to any sign of pain or discomfort. The elderly woman was a cooperative patient, following instructions without complaining, even when the movements clearly caused discomfort in her joints. Amelia prepared the afternoon snack, chamomile tea with whole grain toast, exactly as Theodore had instructed. Charlotte ate in small portions, her movements elegant even in the simplicity of the act of eating. They talked about pleasantries, the weather, the garden flowers, but Amelia could feel there was much more unsaid between them. The large, luxurious house seemed like a golden prison, and Charlotte, its unwilling prisoner. "Do you have children, Amelia?" Charlotte asked suddenly. Amelia smiled, thinking about Olivia, her reason for living. Amelia told her about her 5-year-old daughter, how Olivia loved to draw and was learning to write her name in preschool. Charlotte listened with genuine interest, her eyes brightening with each detail Amelia shared about the little one. The elderly woman asked about Olivia's favorite games, what kind of stories she liked to hear before bed. Amelia realized that Charlotte had an enormous need for affection and human connection, as if she were thirsty for normal, warm conversations. She showed a photo of Olivia on her phone, and Charlotte held the device with both hands, studying the image of the smiling child as if it were a precious treasure. The afternoon was advancing, and the golden sunlight began to enter through the windows, creating elongated shadows across the room. "She has your eyes, the same special sparkle," Charlotte commented tenderly. Amelia felt her heart warm with that affectionate observation. As the day came to an end, Amelia organized the evening medications in the appropriate compartments of the weekly organizer. Each pill had its specific place, each time rigorously noted in the control notebook that Theodore had left. Charlotte watched from her chair, a melancholic expression on her face as she saw the nurse work with such dedication. Amelia could feel the weight of loneliness that surrounded this woman, even living in such a large house with so much material comfort. The walls covered with expensive paintings and designer furniture couldn't fill the emotional emptiness that was palpable in the air. The clock marked almost 6 o'clock, and Amelia knew Theodore would return soon. "You'll come back tomorrow, won't you?" Charlotte asked with touching vulnerability. Amelia gently held her hand, promising that yes, she would. Theodore arrived punctually at 6, entering through the door with the same authoritarian energy as the morning, his cell phone glued to his ear while discussing some business. He barely looked at Amelia or his mother, just making a gesture with his hand for Amelia to approach while he continued his conversation. Amelia waited patiently while he finished the call, observing how Charlotte seemed to shrink in his presence. When he finally hung up, Theodore interrogated her about every detail of the day, from the exact times of medications to what his mother had eaten. Amelia responded professionally to each question, maintaining a respectful tone despite his rudeness. He checked the notebook, looking for some error he could use against her. "I hope it continues this way. I don't tolerate incompetence," he said coldly. Amelia just nodded, controlling her irritation. Night was falling over the green mansion when Amelia finally prepared to leave, storing her belongings in her bag and checking once more if she had left everything in order. Charlotte had been put to bed by Theodore, who performed the task as if it were another business obligation rather than an act of filial care. Amelia went upstairs for a final check and found Charlotte lying down, looking even smaller in the king-size bed. The elderly woman held her hand when she approached to check if she was comfortable. The room had a heavy atmosphere, with thick curtains that blocked the moonlight and antique furniture that seemed to keep secrets. Amelia adjusted the pillows and checked if the water glass was within reach. "Sleep well, Mrs. Charlotte, I'll see you early tomorrow," Amelia said affectionately. Charlotte squeezed her hand with surprising strength, as if not wanting to let her go. Amelia descended the stairs, hearing Theodore on the phone again, his voice echoing through the office as he discussed values and deadlines with someone. She passed silently through the hallway, not wanting to interrupt or draw unnecessary attention. The house at night had an even more oppressive atmosphere, the shadows seeming to hide secrets in every corner. Amelia reached the front door and hesitated for a moment, looking back toward the stairs. Something about that house made her uneasy, a feeling that Charlotte needed more than medical care. She took her keys from her bag and went out into the fresh night air, breathing deeply as if she had been submerged. Tomorrow will be another day, she thought as she walked through the garden. But little did she know what awaited her. The next day, Amelia arrived punctually at 7 in the morning, finding Theodore already on his way out, adjusting his tie while walking hurriedly toward the door. He merely nodded in acknowledgement of her presence, mumbling something about an important meeting with Japanese investors. Amelia went straight up to Charlotte's room, finding her already awake, sitting with difficulty on the edge of the bed. The elderly woman smiled upon seeing her, a genuine smile that lit up her tired face. Amelia helped her with the morning routine, choosing a comfortable floral dress and carefully combing her hair. Charlotte seemed more animated that day, perhaps at the prospect of having gentle company again. "I slept better knowing you would return," Charlotte confessed. Amelia felt the weight of responsibility and affection growing in her chest. Breakfast was served on the back porch, where the morning sun gently warmed the environment and birds sang in the garden. Amelia had prepared oatmeal with fruits, following the diet prescribed by the doctor, but adding a touch of honey that made Charlotte smile like a child. They talked about the flowers blooming in the garden, and Charlotte told stories of when she herself used to care for those plants. Amelia realized that the lady had a sharp memory and a vivid intelligence that contradicted any suggestion of senility. The morning flowed with a lightness that Amelia had not experienced the day before. Charlotte even laughed when a hummingbird appeared near the window, her eyes following the quick movement of the small bird. "It's been so long since I felt so well accompanied," Charlotte said with gratitude. Amelia held her hand, silently promising to protect her. During lunch, Charlotte asked to be taken to the house's library, a room that Amelia had not yet seen. The walls were covered from floor to ceiling with bookshelves, old volumes and first editions worth a fortune. Charlotte showed her favorites, classics of literature that she had read dozens of times throughout her life. Amelia listened to her recite passages from memory, impressed with the elderly woman's mental clarity. It was a moment of deep connection, two women of different generations united by their love of words. Charlotte took an old photo album, showing pictures from her youth of her late husband, of Theodore as a child. Amelia noticed how Charlotte's smile diminished when she reached the more recent photos. "Life changes people in ways we never expect," Charlotte murmured sadly. Amelia squeezed her shoulder in silent support. The afternoon advanced peacefully when Amelia took Charlotte back to her room for her afternoon rest. The elderly woman seemed tired after the active morning, her eyes already heavy with sleep. Amelia helped her lie down, adjusting the pillows and covering her with the light comforter. Charlotte held her hand before she left, her blue eyes fixed on Amelia's with an unexpected intensity. For a moment it seemed she wanted to say something important, her lips opening and closing as if struggling with the words. Amelia waited patiently, feeling that this might be the moment when Charlotte would finally open up about the bruises. But then the elderly woman just smiled weakly and closed her eyes. "Rest. I'll be here when you wake up," Amelia promised softly. Charlotte fell asleep, still holding her hand. Amelia went downstairs to organize the medications and prepare the afternoon snack, taking advantage of the quiet moment to reflect on the 2 days in that house. There was something deeply wrong in the dynamic between Theodore and Charlotte, something that went beyond the simple impatience of a busy son. The unexplained bruises, the fear in Charlotte's eyes when Theodore was nearby, the way she apologized for everything. Amelia had seen similar cases during her internships, but never in such a wealthy family. While cutting fruit for the snack, she wondered if she should report her suspicions, but knew she needed more than intuition. The kitchen clock showed 3 o'clock when she finished arranging the tray. "I need to protect her. But how?" thought Amelia, climbing the stairs. The answer would come sooner than expected. Amelia carefully balanced the tray with the snack as she climbed the stairs, the fennel tea steaming in the porcelain cup. The second-floor hallway was silent, only the ticking of the antique clock breaking the afternoon quietness. She passed the family portrait decorating the wall, noticing how Theodore appeared serious even in childhood photos. Reaching Charlotte's bedroom door, Amelia knocked softly before entering, not wanting to wake her abruptly if she was still sleeping. The room was dim, the partially closed curtains creating a cozy atmosphere. Charlotte was awake, sitting in the armchair near the window, observing the garden with a distant look. "I brought your snack, Miss Charlotte," said Amelia cheerfully. The elderly woman turned with a smile, but Amelia noticed a dried tear on her cheek. The snack proceeded in comfortable silence, Charlotte sipping her tea while Amelia tidied the room, folding clothes and organizing personal items. The elderly woman seemed lost in thought, occasionally sighing deeply as if carrying the weight of the world on her fragile shoulders. Amelia worked efficiently, but always attentive to any sign that Charlotte might need something. The afternoon sun entered obliquely through the window, creating patterns of light and shadow on the Persian carpet. Suddenly, Charlotte let the cup rattle on the saucer, her hands visibly shaking. Amelia rushed to her side, concerned about the sudden paleness that took over the elderly woman's face. "It's all right. It's just that sometimes I remember things I'd rather forget," said Charlotte with a trembling voice. Amelia held her hands, feeling the tremor running through them. Amelia helped Charlotte get up from the armchair to do her evening physical therapy exercises, gentle movements to maintain joint mobility. While guiding the elderly woman's arms in slow circles, she noticed new bruises forming on her wrists, fresh marks that definitely weren't there in the morning. Her heart raced, but she maintained an exterior calm, not wanting to alarm Charlotte. The exercises continued, but Amelia's mind worked frantically, trying to understand when and how those marks could have appeared. Charlotte seemed oblivious to the nurse's concern, focused on performing the movements correctly. The silence between them became heavy, loaded with unspoken words and kept secrets. "Amelia, you're a good person, I can feel that," said Charlotte unexpectedly. Amelia swallowed the lump in her throat, wishing she could do more. The rest of the afternoon passed with Amelia performing routine tasks, always observing Charlotte with increased attention. The elderly woman seemed more fragile with each hour, as if the weight of something invisible slowly crushed her. Amelia prepared a light dinner, a vegetable soup with toast, and fed Charlotte patiently when her hands trembled too much to hold the spoon. The lady's dignity, even in her vulnerability, deeply touched Amelia's heart. Between spoonfuls, Charlotte told fragments of stories from the past, happy memories from before she became a widow. Amelia realized she took refuge in these memories to escape the difficult present. The clock marked almost 6 o'clock, and both knew Theodore would arrive soon. "He wasn't like this as a child, you know," said Charlotte defensively. Amelia just nodded, understanding a mother's need to defend her son. Theodore arrived earlier that day, finding Amelia still helping Charlotte with dinner. His critical gaze examined the scene, looking for something to criticize, but found nothing out of place. Amelia had quickly learned to keep everything exactly as he expected, each detail perfectly executed. He approached his mother, kissing her forehead in a mechanical gesture that seemed more obligation than affection. Charlotte tried to hold his hand, but Theodore was already moving away, checking messages on his phone. Amelia observed the sadness pass through the elderly woman's eyes, like a shadow. Theodore then turned to Amelia with his usual stern expression. "I need to talk to you about next week's schedule," he said dryly. Amelia nodded, following him to the hallway. In the hallway, Theodore handed Amelia a list with schedule changes, demanding that she arrive earlier and leave later on some days. He explained that he would have business trips and needed to ensure that someone competent was with his mother. Amelia agreed without hesitation, thinking about the extra pay those hours would bring. Theodore studied her for a moment, as if assessing her reliability. Then, surprisingly, his tone softened slightly, as he said that his mother seemed to like her. It was the closest thing to a compliment Amelia had received from him. But the moment passed quickly, and he returned to his usual authoritarian tone. "Don't disappoint me, many have failed in this position," he warned. Amelia felt a chill run down her spine at those words. Amelia returned to the room to prepare Charlotte for bed, helping her change clothes and brush her teeth. The nightly routine was performed with care and patience, Amelia always respecting the elderly woman's pace. While combing Charlotte's white hair, she softly hummed a melody that her own mother used to sing. Charlotte closed her eyes, letting herself be lulled by the gentle sound. It was then that Amelia noticed pressure marks on the elderly woman's shoulders, as if someone had held her forcefully. Her stomach turned, but she continued combing gently, without revealing her discovery. Charlotte opened her eyes and met Amelia's in the mirror. "You have gentle hands, dear," Charlotte said with gratitude. Amelia forced a smile, her heart heavy with concern. After settling Charlotte in bed, Amelia went downstairs to get her purse and prepare to leave. Theodore was in his office, the door slightly ajar, allowing her to hear fragments of a heated phone conversation about investments and losses. She passed silently, but stopped when she heard the sound of glass breaking coming from the office. Theodore had apparently thrown a glass against the wall in frustration. Amelia quickened her pace, not wanting to be seen and become the target of his anger. She reached the living room when she heard a crash. Amelia froze upon hearing the crash from upstairs, her heart racing as the sound echoed through the silent house. She immediately dropped her purse and ran toward the stairs, her quick footsteps on the marble breaking the night's silence. The second-floor hallway was shrouded in shadows, only a strip of light escaping from beneath Charlotte's bedroom door. Amelia could hear muffled sounds coming from inside, moans of pain that made her blood run cold. Without hesitation, she turned the doorknob and flung the door open, encountering a scene that made her lose her breath. Charlotte had fallen to the floor beside the bed, her fragile body trembling as she tried to support herself on her right arm. A dark purple bruise was already beginning to form on her left cheek, and silent tears ran down her face. "Miss Charlotte, my God, what happened?" exclaimed Amelia, rushing to help her. Her voice shook with urgency and fear. Before she could reach the elderly woman, a shadow filled the doorway, and Amelia turned to find Theodore standing there, his face a mask of barely contained fury. Beside him, an elegant woman of approximately 50, dressed in a light pink travel outfit, had her hands over her mouth in apparent shock. Amelia had never seen this woman before, but by the way she immediately rushed to Charlotte, she deduced that she was someone very close to the family. The woman had perfectly arranged brown hair and tears beginning to form in her eyes as she knelt beside her mother-in-law. Theodore stepped forward, his finger accusingly pointed at Amelia, while his voice exploded across the room like thunder. The tension in the air was suffocating, and Amelia could feel the weight of his accusations even before he finished speaking. "What did you do to my mother?" shouted Theodore, his face red with anger. Amelia felt her legs tremble, but she stood firm. Amelia ignored the accusations and knelt beside Charlotte, checking her vital signs with professional hands despite her internal trembling. The elderly woman's pulse was accelerated, her breathing shallow and laborious, and she seemed disoriented from the impact of the fall. With infinite care, Amelia rested Charlotte's head on her lap, using a handkerchief to clean the small cut on her forehead. The woman beside her helped by holding Charlotte's hand with apparent affection, her own hands trembling with concern. Theodore continued ranting about negligence and incompetence, but Amelia kept her focus on the patient who needed immediate care. The woman looked at Amelia with genuine concern, her eyebrows furrowed, while stroking her mother-in-law's white hair. "My God, Theodore, call an ambulance now, please. She needs medical help immediately," said the woman with a trembling voice. Her hands shook as she held Charlotte with maternal gentleness. "I am Violet, Theodore's wife. I just returned from a trip and found my mother-in-law in this state," said the woman, her voice breaking with emotion as tears ran down her face. Amelia was surprised by the woman's kindness, especially considering Theodore's fury that continued to fill the room like toxic smoke. Violet leaned over Charlotte, checking her injuries carefully while Theodore spoke on the phone with emergency services, his harsh voice giving the address and demanding speed. Amelia noticed how Charlotte seemed calmer with Violet's presence, her trembling slightly diminishing as her daughter-in-law whispered words of comfort. The contrast between the couple was striking, one furious and accusatory, the other gentle and concerned. Amelia applied pressure to Charlotte's forehead wound, trying to stop the small bleeding. "Everything will be all right, Mother dear. We're here with you, the ambulance is coming, hang in there," Violet whispered affectionately. Amelia felt unexpected relief with that support. "Amelia, were you here when it happened? How did she fall?" "We need to know all the details to inform the doctors," asked Violet, her eyes full of genuine concern while still holding Charlotte's hand. Amelia explained that she had just stepped out, heard the noise and rushed back, finding Charlotte already on the floor. Theodore approached again, his face still red with anger, the cell phone clutched in his hand as if he wanted to break it. The paramedics could be heard climbing the stairs, their professional voices echoing through the hallway. Violet quickly took a blanket from the closet and covered Charlotte, protecting her dignity before the strangers entered. Amelia was impressed with the woman's presence of mind amid the chaos. "You are incompetent. You should be watching her all the time. That's what I pay you for," Theodore shouted. Violet touched his arm gently, trying to calm him. The paramedics entered the room efficiently, immediately taking control of the situation with their equipment and trained protocol. Amelia stepped back to give space, but quickly provided all relevant medical information about Charlotte, including medications and pre-existing conditions. Violet remained by Charlotte's side, holding her hand and promising that she would go with her to the hospital, that she wouldn't leave her alone. Theodore went out to the hallway, clearly making calls to cancel appointments, his irritated voice echoing off the walls. The paramedics worked with precision, checking vital signs, immobilizing Charlotte's neck as a precaution, and preparing her for transport. Amelia observed every movement, making sure they were properly caring for her patient. "Amelia, dear, can you follow us to the hospital? I know Charlotte would like to have you nearby. She trusts you," Violet asked gently. Amelia nodded, surprised by the consideration amid the chaos. At the hospital, the sterile and brightly lit emergency room environment was a stark contrast to the opulence of the Green Mansion. Amelia found Theodore in the hallway, pacing back and forth like a caged animal, his cell phone constantly at his ear as he yelled at someone about cancelled meetings and missed deadlines. Violet was sitting in an uncomfortable plastic chair, eyes red from crying, twisting an embroidered handkerchief between her hands. As soon as she saw Amelia approach, Violet immediately stood up and hugged her, a gesture that caught Amelia completely off guard with its sincerity. Theodore hung up the phone violently when he saw Amelia, his gaze still promising retribution. The hallway was full of other people waiting for news of their loved ones, but the tension around the Green group was palpable. "Theodore, love, please, now is not the time for accusations. Your mother needs all of us united," Violet said softly. Theodore snorted but retreated slightly, crossing his arms. A doctor in a white coat approached the group, his expression professional but with observant eyes. Dr. Carlos was a middle-aged man with graying hair and a posture that inspired confidence. He greeted everyone with a nod before introducing himself as the physician responsible for Charlotte's case. Theodore immediately began firing accusations against Amelia, demanding that she be held accountable for the accident and removed from his mother's care. The doctor listened patiently, but his perceptive eyes moved between all those present, clearly analyzing the family dynamics. Amelia remained silent, letting Theodore vent all his anger, while Violet subtly tried to calm him down. "Doctor, please, how is my mother-in-law? Will she be all right?" "We're all desperate for news," interrupted Violet with an anxious voice. The doctor adjusted his glasses before carefully responding. "Mrs. Charlotte suffered a mild concussion and multiple contusions, some recent, others in different stages of healing, which causes us some medical concern," explained Dr. Carlos, his eyes fixed on Theodore as he spoke. Theodore turned even redder, his fist clenching at his side as he breathed heavily. Violet squeezed his arm, her face showing genuine distress at the doctor's words about the old injuries. The hallway seemed to have grown quieter, as if other visitors could sense the rising tension. Amelia observed everything attentively, noting each reaction, each glance exchanged between the couple. The doctor continued explaining that Charlotte would remain under observation and that they would need to conduct additional tests. "Doctor, this is absurd. Are you implying something?" "My mother is elderly, she falls frequently, and this incompetent nurse doesn't watch her properly," growled Theodore. Amelia felt the words like stabs, but maintained her composure. "Theodore, please, the doctor is just doing his job, And Amelia has been wonderful with your mother, you know that, defended Violet, her voice firm but gentle, subtly positioning herself between her husband and Amelia. Amelia was genuinely surprised by the support, especially coming from someone she had just met under such terrible circumstances. Dr. Carlos observed the interaction with professional interest, clearly filing away each detail in his mind. Theodore seemed about to explode again, but the presence of other patients and staff in the hallway kept him minimally contained. Violet turned to Amelia with a sad but encouraging smile, her eyes showing an understanding that Amelia hadn't expected. The moment was interrupted when a nurse approached to inform them that Charlotte was awake and asking for Amelia. "She wants to see you specifically, said it's important," the nurse informed. Theodore protested immediately, but the doctor authorized the visit. Charlotte was lying in the hospital bed, looking even smaller and more fragile against the institutional white sheets. Her eyes lit up when she saw Amelia enter, and she extended a trembling hand, seeking human contact. Amelia approached and held her hand with infinite gentleness, feeling the fragile bones under skin as thin as tissue paper. Charlotte looked around nervously, making sure they were alone, her blue eyes full of something that Amelia couldn't fully identify. The machines around them beeped rhythmically, creating a tense soundtrack for the moment. Amelia leaned in to hear better when Charlotte began to speak, her voice just a hoarse whisper. "Amelia, I need to tell you something. I didn't fall. I was in the room when—" Charlotte began to confess, tears streaming down her face. Amelia squeezed her hand, encouraging her to continue. However, before she could tell more, the doctor interrupted the moment, entering the room. "It was my fault, doctor. I tried to get up by myself to go to the bathroom and lost my balance," Charlotte said when Dr. Carlos came in to examine her. Amelia felt frustration growing with the obvious lie, especially after the near confession. The doctor examined Charlotte carefully, asking specific questions about the fall, while checking her reflexes and cognitive responses. Charlotte firmly maintained her story, insisting that she had been careless and tried to do something beyond her capabilities. The doctor didn't seem convinced, but respected the patient's version, making notes on his clipboard. Amelia observed in silence, noticing how Charlotte's hands trembled when she mentioned the incident, how her eyes avoided direct contact. Before leaving, the doctor cast a meaningful look at Amelia, clearly communicating that he shared her suspicions. "You remind me so much of my granddaughter. She also had that careful way about her," said Charlotte, as soon as they were alone again. Amelia smiled sadly, wishing she could do more. "My granddaughter lives in Canada. We haven't spoken for years. It was a silly fight about money and pride, things that seem so unimportant now," continued Charlotte, her eyes lost in painful memories. Amelia listened compassionately, realizing how much loneliness weighed on this woman who lived in a luxurious mansion but empty of true affection. The conversation was interrupted when Violet entered the room, her face showing relief at seeing Charlotte awake and talking. She approached the other side of the bed, stroking Charlotte's hair with gentle maternal movements that seemed completely genuine. Amelia observed the interaction carefully, looking for any sign of falsity, but Violet seemed truly concerned. Charlotte visibly relaxed with the gentle touches, closing her eyes for a moment. "Mother dear, I brought your favorite pillow from home and your cashmere blanket. I know the hospital is cold," Violet said affectionately. Charlotte opened her eyes with gratitude. "Violet, darling, you didn't need to trouble yourself. I know you just got back from your trip and must be tired," replied Charlotte, her voice weak but full of appreciation. Violet adjusted the pillow behind Charlotte's back, making sure she was comfortable before checking if the water glass was within reach. Amelia helped from the other side, and the two women worked in sync to ensure the elderly woman's comfort. Theodore appeared at the door but didn't enter, clearly impatient and constantly checking his watch. Violet noticed and discreetly rolled her eyes at Amelia, a moment of complicity between them. The family dynamics were complex, and Amelia was still trying to understand all the elements at play. "Theodore, dear, why don't you go home and rest? I'll stay here with your mother tonight," suggested Violet. Theodore muttered something about important meetings and disappeared. After Theodore left, the atmosphere in the room changed perceptibly, becoming lighter and less tense. Violet pulled a chair closer to the bed and began chatting with Charlotte about everyday things, the new Italian restaurant that opened in the neighborhood, the garden flowers that needed pruning. Amelia observed the interaction, noting how Charlotte seemed genuinely happy with her daughter-in-law's presence, laughing softly at some remarks. It was confusing to see this affectionate dynamic when there were so many signs that something was wrong in that family. Violet then turned to Amelia with a serious but gentle expression. "Amelia, I know Theodore can be difficult, but please don't let that push you away. Charlotte needs you, she trusts you," said Violet sincerely. Amelia promised she would continue caring for Charlotte. The days at the hospital followed a comforting routine. Amelia arrived early, before Theodore appeared for his obligatory visit, and spent the mornings helping Charlotte with breakfast and physiotherapy. The elderly woman was recovering well physically, but Amelia noticed a growing melancholy, as if the fear of returning home increased each day. Violet appeared regularly, always bringing something to cheer Charlotte up: a new book, fresh flowers from the garden, homemade cookies she had baked herself. Theodore came less frequently, always rushed and irritated, barely speaking to his mother before leaving. During one of these quiet mornings, Charlotte held Amelia's hand with unexpected strength. "I need to go home tomorrow. The doctor has discharged me, I'm afraid," Charlotte confessed, trembling. Amelia promised she would be there to protect her. On discharge day, Amelia arrived early at the hospital to help with preparations. She found Violet already there, organizing Charlotte's things and chatting cheerfully about how good it would be to have her back home. Charlotte smiled, but Amelia could see the tension in her eyes, the fear barely disguised behind the polite facade. Theodore arrived with the car, impatient as always, complaining about traffic and wasted time. Dr. Carlos appeared to give final instructions and discreetly handed his card to Amelia again, murmuring something about being available if needed. The journey back to the mansion was silent, Charlotte squeezing Amelia's hand in the back seat, while Theodore drove and Violet tried to maintain light conversation. "We're going to take very good care of you at home, don't worry," said Violet, looking back. Charlotte merely nodded, her fingers trembling. Back at the mansion, Amelia helped settle Charlotte in her room, noting how tense the elderly woman seemed in her own environment. Violet had prepared everything with care: fresh flowers on the nightstand, clean sheets with the scent of lavender, the armchair positioned near the window so Charlotte could see the garden. Theodore immediately disappeared into his office, claiming important calls that couldn't wait. Amelia began organizing the medications, following the new hospital prescriptions, when Violet approached her discreetly. She handed an envelope to Amelia, saying it was a bonus for the extra work during the emergency. Amelia tried to refuse, but Violet insisted, her eyes showing gratitude that seemed to go beyond professional. "You saved her life that night, Amelia. I will never forget that," said Violet emotionally. Amelia accepted, still confused by the dynamic. The following weeks passed with a tense normality. Amelia maintained her care routine, but now with redoubled attention to any sign of danger. Charlotte seemed more withdrawn, spending hours looking out the window without really seeing anything. Violet traveled again for a few days, and during her absence, Amelia noticed that new bruises appeared on Charlotte's arms. Theodore was more irritable than usual, shouting on the phone about financial losses and failed investments. One afternoon, while Amelia prepared Charlotte's snack, she made a decision. She went to an electronics store with her last savings and bought a small camera, the type that could be easily hidden. "I need to protect Charlotte. I need proof," thought Amelia determinedly. Her conscience weighed heavily, but the elderly woman's well-being was more important. Amelia studied Charlotte's room carefully, looking for the perfect place to hide the camera. There was an old picture frame on the dresser, positioned with a view of the bed and most of the room. Carefully, she installed the small camera behind the photo, making sure it was well disguised but with clear vision. Charlotte was resting, and Amelia worked silently, her heart beating fast with fear of being discovered. The camera was motion-activated and would record to a memory card that Amelia could check discreetly. She tested the angle several times, adjusting until it was perfect. When she finished, she looked at Charlotte sleeping peacefully and silently promised that she would discover the truth. "Forgive me for the invasion, Miss Charlotte, but I need to protect you," Amelia whispered softly. Charlotte stirred in her sleep but didn't wake up. The next day, Amelia arrived for her shift with a mixture of anxiety and determination. Violet had returned from her trip and was in the kitchen preparing tea when Amelia entered. The two women talked briefly about Charlotte's condition, with Violet expressing concern about her mother-in-law's apparent worsening mood. Amelia carefully mentioned that she had noticed some new bruises, observing Violet's reaction. The woman seemed genuinely disturbed, frowning and muttering something about needing to talk to Theodore about hiring more help. Amelia went upstairs to check on Charlotte, finding her awake but quiet, staring at the ceiling. The elderly woman seemed to have aged years in just a few weeks. "Good morning, Miss Charlotte. How are you feeling today?" asked Amelia gently. Charlotte turned her face, a solitary tear rolling down. "Amelia, sometimes I wish I could just go to sleep and never wake up again, to be with my husband again," whispered Charlotte, her voice full of a sadness that broke Amelia's heart. Amelia sat on the edge of the bed, holding the elderly woman's fragile hands in hers, trying to transmit warmth and comfort. They sat in silence for a few moments, just sharing each other's presence. Charlotte then began to talk about her husband, how he had been kind and protective, how life had changed after he died. Amelia listened attentively, realizing that Charlotte was saying goodbye in some way, as if she knew something was about to happen. Fear grew in Amelia's chest, an urgency to discover the truth before it was too late. "You'll be fine, I'll take care of you, I promise," said Amelia with conviction. Charlotte smiled sadly, as if she knew something Amelia didn't. Amelia spent the entire day with Charlotte, barely leaving her side except to fetch meals. Theodore appeared briefly in the late afternoon, barely greeting his mother, before starting to complain about medical expenses and the cost of keeping a private nurse. Charlotte visibly shrank with each harsh word, and Amelia had to control herself not to intervene. Violet entered the room during the discussion, trying to smooth over the situation by reminding Theodore of a commitment they had. The couple left arguing in low voices, leaving Amelia and Charlotte alone again. The elderly woman was trembling, clearly affected by her son's visit. Amelia prepared a calming tea and stayed with her until she fell asleep. "Sleep peacefully, I'll be here tomorrow," promised Amelia. Charlotte squeezed her hand before closing her eyes. When leaving the mansion that night, Amelia felt the weight of the hidden camera as if it were a stone in her stomach. She had crossed a line, invaded that family's privacy, but Charlotte's safety was her priority. During the drive home, she thought about everything she had observed, the strange dynamics, the unexplained bruises, the fear in Charlotte's eyes. Arriving home, she hugged Olivia with extra strength, thankful for having her daughter safe and healthy. After putting the girl to bed, Amelia stayed awake, thinking about what she might find in the recording the next day. Part of her hoped to be wrong, that the accidents were really accidents, but her instinct said otherwise. "Tomorrow I'll know the truth," she thought. Sleep was slow to come. The next morning, Amelia arrived earlier than usual, the camera's memory card weighing in her pocket. The house was silent. Theodore had already left for work, and Violet was in the garden cutting flowers. Amelia quickly went upstairs to check on Charlotte, finding her still sleeping peacefully. With her heart racing, she exchanged the camera's memory card for a new one, storing the used one in her pocket. She went down to the staff bathroom on the ground floor, the only place where she would have privacy to check the recordings. Her hands were shaking as she inserted the card into her phone. The screen went black for a moment, then the image of Charlotte's room appeared. "Please let me be wrong," Amelia muttered. But she wasn't. Amelia fast-forwarded through hours of recording, most showing Charlotte sleeping or reading quietly. Then, at approximately 2 in the morning, a figure entered the room. Amelia expected to see Theodore, but her face paled when the image became clear. It was Violet, moving silently in the darkness, approaching Charlotte's bed. The elderly woman woke up startled, and Violet held her arms firmly, twisting them while whispering something that the audio didn't capture clearly. Charlotte tried to defend herself weakly, but Violet was stronger and younger. The aggression lasted only a few minutes, but they were the longest minutes Amelia had ever watched. Tears were streaming down her face as she saw Violet threaten Charlotte before leaving the room as silently as she had entered. "My God, it was her all along," Amelia whispered in shock. Her hands were shaking so much she almost dropped the phone. Amelia was so absorbed in the horror of what she had discovered that she didn't hear the footsteps approaching the bathroom. She jumped when the doorknob turned, quickly putting the phone in her pocket. The door opened and there was Violet, her face with the same gentle expression as always, but now Amelia could see something else behind those eyes. A shiver ran down her spine as the two women stared at each other. Violet tilted her head slightly, a small smile playing on her lips, as if she knew exactly what Amelia had discovered. The small bathroom suddenly seemed even smaller, the walls closing in as Amelia tried to maintain her composure. "Amelia, I need to talk to you. Now," said Violet, her voice soft but with an underlying tone that made Amelia freeze. Violet's smile widened slightly at seeing the fear in Amelia's eyes. Amelia followed Violet down the hallway in silence, her legs feeling like lead as she walked toward the kitchen. The phone in her pocket seemed to burn against her skin, the video of the assault recorded there as incriminating evidence that could change everything. Violet walked ahead with confident steps, her elegant outfit swaying gently, as if they were just going for a casual breakfast. The large modern kitchen was bathed in morning sunlight, creating a surreal contrast with the tension hanging in the air. Amelia stopped near the central marble island, keeping her distance from Violet, who turned slowly to face her. The gentle smile was still there, but now Amelia could see the cruelty behind the mask. Amelia's hands were shaking slightly, and she hid them by crossing her arms, trying to appear more confident than she felt. "Amelia, dear, we need to talk about professional boundaries," said Violet, her voice sweet like poisoned honey. Amelia swallowed hard, preparing herself for the confrontation. Violet walked calmly to the purse that was on the counter, her movements calculated and precise, like those of a predator circling its prey. She opened the zipper slowly, the sound echoing in the silent kitchen, and took something out that made Amelia's heart stop. It was the camera she had hidden in Charlotte's room, the small device looking enormous in Violet's manicured hands. The woman twirled the object between her fingers, examining it with false curiosity, before setting her eyes on Amelia again. The silence extended for seconds that felt like hours, each one waiting for the other to make the first move. Amelia tried to maintain a neutral expression, but knew that the initial shock had already betrayed her guilt. Violet placed the camera on the marble with a soft click that sounded like a gunshot in the silence. "I found this in my mother-in-law's room, hidden in the picture frame," Violet said calmly. Amelia felt the blood drain from her face. Amelia felt anger replace her initial fear, the injustice of the situation giving her a courage she didn't know she possessed. She straightened her shoulders and faced Violet directly, refusing to be intimidated despite the evident danger. Her hands closed into fists at her sides, nails digging into her palms as she struggled to maintain control. The image of Charlotte being assaulted in the video burned in her mind, fueling her determination not to abandon the defenseless elderly woman. Violet seemed surprised by the resistance, her smile faltering for a moment before composing herself. Amelia stepped forward, her voice trembling but determined when she finally found the words. The sun coming through the window created a dividing line between them, light and shadow marking the battlefield. "I don't regret what I did. Donna Charlotte needs protection," Amelia declared firmly. Violet laughed, a cold sound that made Amelia shudder. "Recording people without consent is a crime, dear, especially in their own home in intimate and private moments," Violet continued, her voice maintaining that falsely concerned tone that Amelia now recognized as pure manipulation. Each word was carefully articulated, as if Violet was savoring the power she had in that moment. The woman leaned on the Italian marble countertop, crossing her arms casually, but her eyes never left Amelia's face, observing every micro-expression like a predator studying its prey. Amelia could feel cold sweat running down her back, her heart beating so hard she was sure Violet could hear it. The kitchen, which previously seemed spacious and airy, now closed around her like a trap. Amelia knew she needed to think fast, that the video on her phone was her only chance to protect Charlotte, the only concrete evidence of the abuse. But Violet was subtly blocking her escape route, her body positioned to appear relaxed, but clearly calculated. The kitchen had only two exits, the door leading to the main hallway and the back door that led to the garden, and Violet was strategically positioned between Amelia and both, like a general who had studied the battlefield. The clock on the wall marked the seconds with cruel precision, each tick a reminder that Charlotte was in danger upstairs. sedated and vulnerable. Amelia tried to take a step to the side, testing, and Violet immediately mirrored her movement, always keeping herself between her and the exit. The air was heavy with unspoken tension, with threats implicit in every gesture. Amelia took a deep breath, trying to find her voice amid the growing panic that threatened to completely paralyze her. Her hands were shaking, and she hid them behind her back so Violet wouldn't see her weakness. "But I'm understanding. Get your belongings and leave now," ordered Violet, completely abandoning the gentle facade, her face transforming into a mask of cold cruelty. Her voice cut through the air like a sharp blade, each word a definitive sentence. Amelia felt her anger increase even more. "I will not abandon Donna Charlotte. She needs protection," Amelia declared firmly. Violet laughed, a cold sound that made Amelia shudder. "Protection? You think you're some heroine saving a helpless old lady?" Violet mocked, slowly circling around the marble island like a shark. Amelia turned to keep Violet in her field of vision, aware that she was being cornered but refusing to show fear. Violet stopped near the knife drawer, her hand casually resting on the handle, a gesture that didn't go unnoticed by Amelia. The silent threat was clear, but Amelia knew that Violet was too clever to do something so obvious. The woman preferred more subtle, more cruel methods, as she had demonstrated with Charlotte. But before that," Violet interrupted, raising a finger as if she had just remembered something important. She approached Amelia slowly, each step measured and threatening despite the smile on her face. Amelia instinctively backed away until her back touched the counter, with nowhere to run. Violet stopped just inches from her, her expensive perfume invading Amelia's personal space in a suffocating way. The woman extended her hand, palm facing up in a gesture that admitted no refusal. Amelia looked at the outstretched hand without understanding, her brain still processing the situation. Violet tilted her head, her smile becoming sharper, more dangerous. "Your phone, Amelia, I know you downloaded the images to it. I saw you changing the memory card yesterday," Violet said with satisfaction. Amelia felt her stomach drop, realizing she had been watched the entire time. Amelia hesitated, her hand instinctively going to the pocket where she kept her phone, but without removing it. Those images were her only proof, the only hope for justice for Charlotte. Violet sighed theatrically as if dealing with a stubborn child, and picked up her own phone. She quickly typed something and turned the screen for Amelia to see. It was the social services website, and Violet had already partially filled out a complaint form. Amelia could see her full name, her address, and terrible accusations already typed in. Violet's finger hovered over the submit button, the threat clear as crystal. Amelia felt her legs tremble at the thought of Olivia, of how her daughter would be if she lost her. "I just need one word to the authorities, and I'll take your case to my contacts in social services, Amelia. People who trust me implicitly," Violet said casually. Amelia closed her eyes for a moment, defeated. A single mother, invading privacy, recording a family without consent. "Who knows what other things you would be capable of doing with a small child," continued Violet, each word carefully chosen to cause maximum pain. She walked slowly around Amelia as she spoke, like a vulture circling its dying prey. Amelia could feel the predatory gaze upon her, evaluating every reaction, savoring every tremor of fear. Violet stopped in front of her again, tilting her head with false concern while continuing her psychological torture. Her perfectly manicured nails drummed on the marble countertop, creating a hypnotic and threatening rhythm. Amelia tried to speak, to defend herself, but her throat was closed by panic, the words dying before being born. "Just imagine, Olivia. Isn't that her name? Imagine Olivia being raised by a real family, with father and mother, financial stability, quality education," said Violet, with a venomous smile. Amelia felt her legs weaken upon hearing her daughter's name in that cruel mouth. Amelia opened the eyes she had closed in despair, tears already flowing freely down her face, leaving wet trails on her cheeks. Her hands shook violently as she slowly reached into her pocket, each movement seeming to take an eternity. The phone seemed to weigh tons when she took it out, the device slipping slightly in her sweaty palms. Violet watched with sadistic satisfaction, her eyes gleaming with imminent victory. Amelia looked at the phone screen, seeing the reflection of her own devastated face, and for a moment considered throwing the device to the floor, destroying it completely. But then she thought of Charlotte upstairs, sedated and defenseless, and of Olivia waiting at home, trusting that her mother would always protect her. Violet snapped her fingers impatiently, the sharp sound making Amelia flinch. "Come on, Amelia, we don't have all day, and Charlotte needs her 11 o'clock medication," said Violet with false concern. Amelia typed the password with fingers that seemed not to belong to her. The numbers on the screen seemed to dance before her tear-blurred eyes, forming incomprehensible patterns as Amelia tried to focus through the panic. Her fingers trembled violently as she touched each digit, getting the password wrong on the first attempt, with a cruel beep of denial. The sound seemed to echo through the kitchen, amplified by the oppressive silence. Her hands were shaking so much that she had to rest the phone on the cold marble countertop to achieve some stability, but even so her fingers seemed not to obey her brain's commands. Amelia could feel Violet's predatory gaze burning into the back of her neck, evaluating each second of hesitation. Violet sighed theatrically, a long and exaggerated sound that demonstrated her feigned impatience, crossing her arms and tapping her stiletto heel on the marble floor in a hypnotic and threatening rhythm. Each touch of the shoe sounded like the ticking of a bomb about to explode, each sound amplified in the tense silence of the kitchen until it seemed like thunder. Amelia tried again, forcing herself to breathe slowly as she typed the familiar numbers, Olivia's birth date, the only numbers that always brought her comfort. This time, the phone unlocked with a small click of confirmation that sounded like a death sentence to Amelia's ears. Before she could even process what was happening or try to make any defensive movement, Violet launched herself quickly like a striking snake. She snatched the phone from Amelia's hands with brutal violence, her perfectly manicured but razor-sharp nails deeply scratching Amelia's skin in the process, leaving 3 red lines on her wrist. Amelia let out a small cry of pain and surprise, instinctively bringing her injured hand to her chest. Violet didn't even acknowledge the injury she had caused, already completely focused on the phone in her hands. The woman began to navigate through the files with frightening and methodical efficiency, her fingers flying across the screen with the precision of someone who had done this before, as if she knew exactly how Amelia's files were organized. She first opened the messaging app, quickly checking recent conversations. Then she went to email, her eyes rapidly scanning. Amelia watched in growing agony as Violet opened the gallery, scrolling through recent photos with impressive speed, then clicking on the recent videos folder. Violet's face lit up with sick, triumphant satisfaction when she found what she was looking for, the video file saved just hours ago. "Ah, here it is. Let's see what you found so important to record secretly in my family's house," said Violet with fake curiosity, her voice dripping with venomous sarcasm. Amelia closed her eyes tightly, unable to bear watching the moment her last hope would be destroyed. Violet played the video, and the muffled sound of the recording filled the silent kitchen. Amelia could hear the sounds she had discovered hours before, Charlotte's moans of pain, the creaking of the bed, and Violet's voice in the video whispering threats. The real Violet watched with a cold smile, completely without remorse at seeing evidence of her own crimes. Amelia opened her eyes to see Violet's face illuminated by the screen, her features distorted in an expression of sick pleasure. When the video showed the moment she twisted Charlotte's arm, Violet even tilted her head as if admiring her own technique. Amelia felt nausea rising in her throat, the horror of the situation hitting her completely. "Your daughter would be better off with a structured family, don't you think? One that doesn't have a criminal mother who invades others' privacy," Violet cruelly whispered, pausing the video on the most incriminating frame. Amelia felt a tear roll down her face, followed by another and another. Violet watched the entire video, her face remaining impassive except for a small smile at the corners of her lips. When it finished, she looked at Amelia with an expression of false disappointment, like a teacher who caught a student cheating. Without breaking eye contact, Violet deleted the video, then went to the trash bin and deleted it permanently. Amelia made an involuntary movement to grab the phone, but Violet pulled it away, still not satisfied. She checked the gallery, recent files, even cloud apps to ensure there were no copies. Amelia had been smart enough not to upload it, fearing she could be tracked. Violet then checked the message history, emails, anywhere the video might have been sent. "Very well, you didn't share it with anyone. That shows you still have some sense," commented Violet with condescending approval. Amelia remained silent, tears now flowing freely. After ensuring that all evidence had been destroyed, Violet returned the phone to Amelia, with a disdainful gesture, as if returning trash. Amelia took the device with trembling hands, feeling as if she had lost her last weapon in the battle. Violet then took the camera from the counter and placed it in her purse, eliminating any possibility of recovering the original recordings. She stepped back a few paces, smoothing her skirt as if nothing had happened, as if she hadn't just destroyed Amelia's only hope of protecting Charlotte. The kitchen seemed colder now, the shadows longer, despite the sun still shining outside. Amelia felt completely defeated, emptied of any strength to fight. "Now you can get your things and leave, and Amelia, if you try anything at all," said Violet, leaving the threat hanging in the air. Amelia nodded mutely, understanding perfectly. Amelia climbed the stairs with heavy legs, Violet following right behind like a threatening shadow. She needed to get her purse that she had left in Charlotte's room earlier. When they entered the room, Amelia saw Charlotte lying on the bed, clearly sedated, her breathing heavy and irregular. The elderly woman looked even more fragile, more vulnerable, and Amelia felt her heart break at the thought of leaving her in Violet's hands. Amelia approached the bed slowly, wanting to say goodbye, but aware that Violet was watching her every move. Charlotte opened her eyes with difficulty, trying to focus on Amelia, but clearly struggling against the effects of sedatives. Amelia gently took her hand, feeling the fragile bones and paper-thin skin. "Mrs. Charlotte, I'll have to be away for a while, but I'll always think of you," whispered Amelia. Charlotte tried to squeeze her hand, but barely had the strength. Amelia discreetly took a piece of paper and wrote down her phone number, leaving it hidden under Charlotte's pillow, doing this while adjusting the blankets to disguise the movement. Violet was near the door, checking messages on her phone, apparently confident that she had completely broken Amelia. Charlotte mumbled something incomprehensible, her eyes filling with tears, as if she knew she was being abandoned. Amelia had to fight against every instinct that screamed for her to take Charlotte and get her out of there, to protect her somehow. But Violet's threats about Olivia echoed in her mind, paralyzing her. She leaned in and softly kissed Charlotte's forehead, feeling the warm, dry skin beneath her lips. "I'll come back to help you somehow, I promise," Amelia murmured, too quietly for Violet to hear. Charlotte closed her eyes, a tear rolling down. Violet cleared her throat impatiently, indicating it was time for Amelia to leave. Amelia grabbed her purse with trembling hands, taking one last look at Charlotte before turning away. Violet escorted her down the hallway and down the stairs, staying close as if fearing Amelia might try something desperate. At the front door, Violet stopped Amelia with a hand on her shoulder, squeezing hard enough to make it clear it was a threat. Amelia turned to face her, seeing Violet's face without any mask now, pure cruelty and satisfaction. Violet leaned in to whisper in Amelia's ear, her words cold and precise. "If you talk to anyone, if you try to contact us, if you even think about coming back here, I will destroy your life so completely that you'll beg you never came to this house," Violet threatened smoothly. Amelia stumbled out, the door slamming shut behind her. Amelia drove for several minutes before stopping in an empty parking lot, her hands shaking so badly she could no longer hold the steering wheel. Tears came in waves, deep sobs that shook her entire body. She had completely failed, left Charlotte in her abuser's hands, and now didn't even have evidence to show anyone. After calming down a bit, Amelia took her phone and called the only contact who could help Dr. Carlos. He answered on the third ring, his professional voice changing to concern when he heard Amelia's state. She explained everything between sobs, how Violet had discovered the camera, the threats, the destruction of evidence. The doctor remained silent for long moments, processing the information. "Amelia, come to the hospital now. We need to talk in person," he said urgently. Amelia agreed, starting the car again. At the hospital, Dr. Carlos was waiting in his office, his face grave and concerned. Amelia sat in the chair across from him, feeling completely exhausted and defeated. The doctor offered water, which she gratefully accepted, her hands still trembling slightly. He waited until she calmed down before speaking, his voice gentle but serious. The doctor explained that he had done some research on his own, discovering that 3 previous nurses had cared for Charlotte in the last 2 years. All had been abruptly dismissed, and he had managed to contact 2 of them. Amelia straightened in her chair, a flash of hope emerging. The doctor handed her a paper with names and numbers, suggesting she try to speak with them. "Perhaps together you can build a stronger case," the doctor suggested hopefully. Amelia kept the paper as if it were gold. Amelia spent the rest of the day trying to contact the former nurses. At the first, a woman named Rosa answered but fell silent when Amelia mentioned the Greens. After much insistence, Rosa agreed to meet her at a discreet cafe downtown. When they met, Rosa was visibly nervous, constantly looking around as if afraid of being watched. She told Amelia that she had also noticed the abuse, had tried to help Charlotte, but Violet had threatened her in a similar way. Rosa had young grandchildren, and Violet had been very specific about what could happen to them. The second nurse, younger, had completely moved away from the city after her experience with the Greens. She confirmed by phone that she had seen terrible things, but was too traumatized to get involved. "That woman is the devil incarnate. Run while you can," Rosa advised before leaving. Amelia was left alone at the cafe, processing the information. It was already night when Amelia's cell phone rang, the shrill sound cutting through the silence of her small apartment where she sat in the dark, unable to do anything but think about Charlotte. The display showed an unknown number, and Amelia almost didn't answer, fearing it might be another threat from Violet. But something, perhaps intuition or desperate hope, made her slide her finger across the screen to accept the call. She brought the device to her ear with trembling hands, and her heart almost stopped when she heard the weak and shaky voice on the other end. It was Charlotte, her voice just a hoarse whisper, as if she were speaking through tears and fear. Amelia stood up immediately, pressing the phone against her ear, trying to catch every word. The connection was poor, with static and interference, but she could hear the pure panic in the elderly woman's voice. "Amelia, my dear, please, you need to help me," Charlotte whispered desperately. Amelia felt tears beginning to fall again. "Mrs. Charlotte, where are you? What's happening?" "Talk to me, please," begged Amelia, already grabbing her car keys with her free hand. She could hear Charlotte's heavy and broken breathing, as if she were hiding somewhere, trying not to be discovered. The elderly woman began to speak quickly, the words coming out in desperate bursts between muffled sobs. Amelia had to strain to understand, pressing the phone even harder against her ear. Charlotte explained that she had woken up from the sedative and found the paper with Amelia's number, managing to get an old phone she kept hidden in her bedside table drawer. But Violet had entered the room minutes later and found the paper under the pillow, flying into a terrible rage. "She became completely unhinged, Amelia. I've never seen her like this. She said she's going to send me away to a place where no one will find me," Charlotte cried. Amelia was already running down the stairs. "She called an ambulance," Amelia said. "It's a special nursing home for elderly people with dementia." "But I don't have dementia, you know I don't," Charlotte continued, her voice getting higher with panic. Amelia could hear noises in the background now. Distant voices, but getting closer, doors being opened and closed forcefully. Charlotte was breathing faster and faster, clearly in total panic. Amelia tried to keep her calm while running to her car, almost tripping on the sidewalk. She could hear Charlotte moving, probably trying to hide or find a safer place to talk. The sound of heavy footsteps echoed through the phone, and Charlotte let out a moan of fear. Amelia started the car with one hand while keeping the phone with the other. "Mrs. Charlotte, hang in there, I'm coming right now," Amelia promised desperately. But they both knew it might be too late. Suddenly, the sound of a door being violently flung open filled the line, and Amelia heard Charlotte release a muffled scream. Angry voices exploded in the background, and Amelia recognized Violet's voice shouting something about ingratitude and betrayal. Charlotte was openly crying now, begging to be left alone, saying she had done nothing wrong. The sound of struggle, furniture being dragged, and then Charlotte screamed directly into the phone, knowing she had only seconds. Amelia accelerated through the dark streets, tears blurring her vision, as she listened to the desperation of the woman she had sworn to protect. "Help, she found out I talked to you. She's going to put me in the nursing home. Please help me, Amelia. Please," sobbed Charlotte, her voice breaking. The sound of the phone being snatched away, a dull thud, and then absolute silence. Amelia floored the accelerator, the car speeding through the dark streets as she tried to process what she had just heard. The call had been abruptly cut off, but Charlotte's desperate screams still echoed in her ears like a relentless alarm. Her hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly that her knuckles were white, and she had to force herself to breathe deeply to avoid losing control of the vehicle. The tears had stopped falling, replaced by an iron determination she didn't know she possessed. While stopping at a red light, trembling with adrenaline, a sudden memory hit her like lightning. Before Violet had confronted her in the kitchen, before being forced to delete the video from her phone, she had done something out of pure preservation instinct. The light turned green and Amelia accelerated again, but now with a plan forming in her mind. "My God, the email, I sent it to my email," Amelia muttered to herself. Her heart raced with renewed hope. Amelia stopped the car at a gas station, her hands trembling with anxiety as she picked up her cell phone. She quickly opened her email app, praying that her memory was correct. The connection seemed slower than normal, each loading second an eternity of agony. Then there it was in the sent folder, an email to herself with a video attachment, sent minutes before Violet confronted her. Amelia had done this almost automatically while waiting in the kitchen, a backup precaution that now could save Charlotte. She downloaded the video again, verifying it was intact, clearly showing Violet assaulting Charlotte in the dark of early morning. With trembling fingers, she searched for Dr. Carlos's card in her purse, dialing the number while already returning to her car. "Dr. Carlos, please answer, please," Amelia begged into the phone. He answered on the fifth ring, his voice sleepy but immediately alert upon hearing Amelia's desperation. "Amelia, what happened?" "It's almost 11 at night," said Dr. Carlos, and Amelia could hear the noise of him getting up. Amelia explained everything in quick, stumbling words, about Charlotte's desperate call, about the ambulance, about the nursing home, and most importantly, about the video she had recovered. The doctor was silent for a moment, processing the information, and then his voice returned strong and determined. He said he would immediately call his contacts in the police, that he had a friend who was a police chief who would take this seriously. Amelia should meet him at the emergency entrance of the hospital in 15 minutes. He would also call emergency social services, activating all elder protection protocols. Amelia thanked him profusely, already driving toward the hospital. "Don't worry, Amelia. This time we'll do the right thing," the doctor assured. Amelia felt tears of relief threatening to fall. The hospital appeared ahead like a beacon of hope, its bright lights cutting through the darkness of night. Amelia parked hastily and ran to the emergency entrance where Dr. Carlos was already waiting for her, accompanied by two uniformed police officers. One was a tall, serious man, the other a woman with perceptive eyes who immediately fixed her attention on Amelia. The doctor made quick introductions, and Amelia showed the video on her phone. The officers' reaction was immediate, their faces hardening as they saw the clear images of abuse. The female officer took her radio, already calling for backup and requesting to intercept any ambulance leaving the Green residence. The officer asked for the exact address and Amelia provided it, her voice gaining strength as she saw that she was finally being taken seriously. "We're going right now, Ms. "Amelia, you'll come with us for identification," the officer said with authority. Amelia nodded, feeling real hope for the first time in hours. The patrol cars raced through the city with sirens blaring, cutting through the night traffic like hot knives through butter. Amelia was in the back seat of one of them, her heart beating at the same frantic rhythm as the flashing lights. The officer beside her maintained constant contact via radio, coordinating with other units. Suddenly, a voice crackled over the radio, informing them they had located a private ambulance leaving the Green residential area. Amelia leaned forward, barely able to contain her anxiety. The driver of the patrol car stepped even harder on the accelerator, the engine roaring as they made tight turns. Amelia could see other patrol cars converging from different directions, all heading to the same point. The officer turned to her with a determined expression. "We've managed to locate the ambulance. It's being intercepted now," the officer informed. Amelia closed her eyes in a silent prayer. When they arrived at the Green mansion, the scene was one of pure, controlled chaos. The ambulance was stopped at the entrance, surrounded by police cars with flashing lights, illuminating the night like blue and red fireworks. Amelia jumped out of the car before it had even completely stopped, her eyes desperately searching for Charlotte. The paramedics were standing next to the ambulance, clearly confused by the police intervention. Theodore was at the mansion door, his face a mask of fury and indignation, gesturing violently while shouting about property invasion and lawsuits. Violet was at his side, maintaining her facade of concerned wife, hands intertwined in apparent distress. Amelia saw the stretcher inside the ambulance, Charlotte lying on it, apparently sedated but alive. The officer accompanying Amelia approached the group with authority. "Everyone stop. This transfer is suspended while we investigate allegations of elder abuse," she declared firmly. Theodore exploded in protests. "This is absurd. You have no right to interfere in my family's medical matters. I will sue all of you," shouted Theodore, his face red with anger. Violet placed her hand on his arm, pretending to calm him while shooting venomous glances at Amelia. The paramedics stepped back, clearly not wanting to get involved in the situation. Amelia approached the ambulance wanting to check on Charlotte's condition, but an officer gently prevented her. The officer in charge asked to see the commitment papers, which Theodore reluctantly handed over. She examined the documents, noting inconsistencies in the signatures and medical authorization. Meanwhile, more people began to emerge from their homes, curious neighbors watching the drama unfold. "We have evidence that this lady is being a victim of domestic abuse," announced the officer. Violet visibly paled, taking a step back. The officer picked up a tablet and approached Theodore, her face serious as she prepared the device. Amelia was called to show the video, and with slightly trembling hands, she transferred the file to the official tablet. Theodore watched impatiently, clearly thinking this was all a misunderstanding that would be quickly resolved. Violet tried to approach to see as well, but was gently prevented by another officer. The screen came to life showing Charlotte's dark room, the timestamp indicating 2:15 in the morning. Theodore frowned, leaning in to see better. Then Violet appeared in the video, moving silently toward Charlotte's bed. What happened next completely changed Theodore's expression. "What is this?" muttered Theodore, his voice losing all arrogance. His eyes widened in shock. The video clearly showed Violet forcefully holding Charlotte's arms, twisting them, while the elderly woman tried weakly to defend herself. The audio, although muffled, captured Charlotte's moans of pain and Violet's whispered threats. Theodore watched with his mouth open, his face changing from angry red to shocked white. His hands began to shake and he had to lean against the wall to avoid falling. When the video showed Violet slapping Charlotte's face before leaving the room, Theodore let out a strangled sound. He turned to Violet, his eyes full of horror and disbelief. Violet tried to approach him, already starting to formulate explanations, but Theodore stepped back as if she were poisonous. "Violet? What? Mother, my God, Mother, forgive me, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know," shouted Theodore, running toward the ambulance. Tears began to stream down his face. Violet tried to run, turning abruptly and running toward the back of the house, but the officers were prepared. The policewoman accompanying Amelia went after her with two other officers, catching her before she could reach the back gate. Violet briefly struggled, shouting about misunderstandings and demanding her lawyer, but was quickly restrained and handcuffed. As she was brought back, she shot a look of pure hatred at Amelia, her eyes promising revenge. Amelia held her gaze firmly, no longer intimidated by that woman. Theodore, meanwhile, had reached the ambulance where Charlotte was beginning to wake from the sedative. The paramedics were examining her, checking her vital signs. "You came back. You came back to save me," murmured Charlotte upon seeing Amelia approach. Amelia held her hand, tears of relief finally falling. Theodore knelt beside the stretcher, taking his mother's other hand with a gentleness Amelia had never seen him demonstrate. His face was devastated, tears flowing freely as he looked at the visible bruises on Charlotte's arms. The elderly woman looked at her son with a mixture of fear and hope, clearly unsure of his intentions. Theodore gently kissed her hand, his voice breaking as he begged for forgiveness. The neighbors watched the scene in shock, many recording with their cell phones. Violet was being placed in the police car, still protesting her innocence. The officer approached Theodore to inform him that Charlotte would be taken to the hospital for complete examinations and that he could accompany her. "Forgive me, Mother. How was I so blind? How did I not notice?" "Forgive me, please," sobbed Theodore. Charlotte weakly caressed her son's face, tears streaming down her own cheeks. Dr. Carlos arrived at that moment, having followed the police cars in his own car. He immediately took over Charlotte's medical care, checking her condition and coordinating with the paramedics for proper transport to the hospital. Amelia remained by Charlotte's side throughout the process, refusing to let go of her hand. Theodore stood up, wiping his face and trying to regain some composure. He approached Amelia, and for a moment she tensed, expecting some accusation. Instead, Theodore extended his hand to her, his eyes full of remorse and gratitude. Amelia hesitated before accepting the handshake. The man seemed to have aged years in minutes, the weight of guilt clearly crushing him. Theodore approached Amelia in the hospital corridor, his face a mask of conflicting emotions. He stopped a few steps away from her, as if he didn't deserve to come closer, and his hands visibly trembled while he tried to find the words. When he finally spoke, his voice was hoarse and broken. "Amelia, I need to say this before my courage disappears. You did something that goes far beyond any professional obligation, something that transcends what any normal person would do. You saw an elderly woman being hurt and couldn't simply turn your back even when it meant putting your own life at risk. What kind of person does that these days? What kind of heart do you have that can't ignore the suffering of others? I am a successful businessman, Amelia. I built an empire, I have powerful contacts, I dine with politicians and businessmen. And you know what all of that was worth when my mother needed me most? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Because I was so blinded by my own pride, so involved in my own importance, that I didn't see the evil living under my own roof. Worse, I protected this evil, gave it power, defended it against anyone who tried to expose the truth. You must have hated me, Amelia. Every time I humiliated you, every time I questioned your competence, every time I threatened your career. And yet, even with all my contempt, all my arrogance, you continued trying to protect my mother. You saw beyond my horrible behavior and focused on what truly mattered, a defenseless lady needing help. When Violet threatened your daughter, my God, your little daughter, you had to make an impossible choice. And even being forced to leave, even with this terrible threat hanging over you, you didn't give up. You went to the police, sought out the doctor, contacted other nurses. You did the work that the police should have done, the investigation that I should have conducted. You know what haunts me the most? It's thinking about how many times my mother must have tried to give me signs. How many times she must have waited for me, her son, to notice her pain. And I was always on the phone, always in meetings, always in a hurry. I left her alone with her fears, with her pain, with her despair. But you, a stranger until a few months ago, you saw, you cared, you acted. Amelia, there's a concept in the business world about irreplaceable people. They're rare, those who do something that no one else can do. You are that, but not in the corporate sense. You are irreplaceable in the purest human sense. You have a moral compass that doesn't sell out, doesn't become corrupted, doesn't bend before threats. You chose to do the right thing even when doing right could destroy your life. I look at you and see everything that money can't buy. Real courage, not the false bravado that I showed. True love, not the family obligation that I pretended to fulfill. Genuine determination, not the arrogant stubbornness that I called strength. You saved my mother, yes, but you saved something more. You saved my chance to redeem myself, to try to be a better son, to learn what really matters in life. If you hadn't done what you did, my mother could have. I can't even say it. And I would never have known, would have continued living my empty life thinking I was fulfilling my role as a good son because I paid the bills. Amelia, you are the kind of person who restores faith in humanity. In a world where everyone pretends not to see, you saw. Where everyone chooses the easy path, you chose the right one. Where everyone protects themselves first, you protected someone who couldn't protect herself. Theodore stopped, wiping away tears with the back of his hand, completely stripped of his usual arrogance. Amelia just nodded, still processing the dramatic change, seeing the profound transformation of a man confronted with his own failures. The ambulance interrupted the moment when it was cleared to take Charlotte to the hospital, this time with Amelia and Theodore accompanying. Dr. Carlos went in his car, already calling to prepare a specialized medical team. During the journey, Charlotte remained conscious, holding the hands of Amelia and Theodore. The elderly woman seemed smaller and more fragile than ever, but there was a gleam of relief in her eyes that Amelia hadn't seen in a long time. Theodore kept apologizing, promising that he would take better care of her, that he would never leave her vulnerable again. Charlotte forgave him with a weak nod of her head, too tired for words. The city passed by the ambulance windows, the nightlights creating hypnotic patterns. "I knew you would come back, Amelia. I knew it," whispered Charlotte. Amelia squeezed her hand gently, too emotional to speak. At the hospital, Charlotte was immediately taken for complete examinations. Dr. Carlos personally coordinated all procedures, ensuring that each injury was properly documented. Amelia stayed in the waiting room with Theodore, an uncomfortable silence between them. Theodore sat with his head in his hands, clearly devastated by the revelation about his wife. After a long time, he began to speak, telling how he had met Violet, how she had always seemed so caring toward his mother. He admitted that he had been so focused on business, so absent, that he never noticed the signs. Amelia listened without judgment, understanding that Theodore was also in a way a victim of Violet's manipulation. A nurse came to inform them that Charlotte was stable and asking to see both of them. "I should have listened, should have paid attention," muttered Theodore. Amelia stood up, indicating they should go see Charlotte. Charlotte was in a private room connected to monitors but awake and alert. Her face lit up when she saw Amelia and Theodore entering together. Dr. Carlos was finishing reviewing her chart and informed them that physically she would recover completely, although psychological support would be necessary to deal with the trauma. Theodore approached the bed cautiously, as if fearing his mother would reject him. Charlotte extended her hand to him, and father and son embraced for the first time in years, both crying. Amelia observed the scene with emotion, feeling that finally something was being healed. The doctor discreetly motioned for Amelia to leave with him to discuss the next steps. "You did the right thing, Amelia. You saved a life today," said Dr. Carlos. Amelia felt the weight of the past few days finally beginning to dissipate. In the hallway, Dr. Carlos explained that Charlotte would need to stay hospitalized for a few days for observation and recovery. He also mentioned that the police would need Amelia's formal statement and that other former nurses had come forward, willing to testify now that Violet was in custody. Amelia learned that the investigation would reveal much more, that Violet had systematically abused Charlotte for almost 2 years. The doctor also informed her that Theodore had asked to speak with Amelia about something important. When they returned to the room, they found Theodore on the phone speaking to someone in English. He hung up and turned to Amelia with a hopeful expression. It was Anna, Charlotte's granddaughter, who was catching the first flight from Canada. "Amelia, I need to make you a proposal," Theodore began. Amelia prepared herself to listen. Theodore took a deep breath, his hands trembling slightly as he prepared to speak, turning to the caregiver, clearly struggling with the words he needed to say. He looked first at Charlotte, then at Amelia, and began with a choked but determined voice. "Amelia, I need to say so much that I don't even know where to begin. First, forgive me. Please forgive me for every harsh word, every look of contempt, every moment I doubted you. I was a blind, arrogant, and cruel idiot. You were trying to protect my mother while I accused you of incompetence. My God, how was I so stupid? How did I not see what was happening under my own roof? I prided myself on being a successful businessman, capable of reading people and situations, but I failed to protect the most important person in my life. My own mother was suffering, being mistreated, and I not only ignored the signs but attacked the only person who had the courage to try to help her. You risked your job, your safety, even your daughter to save my mother, while I, her son, was too busy counting money to notice she was being hurt. Amelia, I now recognize that my mother trusts you more than she will ever trust me again, and she has every reason to do so. You proved your dedication in a way that deeply shames me, because it shows how much I failed as a son. That's why I'm here humbly, not as Theodore Green, the businessman, but as a desperate son who wants to make things right, begging you to accept staying with us. Not as a simple nurse, but as the complete manager of my mother's care with a salary of 100,000 Rs monthly, comprehensive health insurance for you and Olivia, paid education for your daughter at the best schools, company car, anything you need or want. I know that money doesn't erase what I did, the threats, the way I treated you, but it's the least I can offer. I will also arrange family therapy for me and my mother, because I know we have a lot to rebuild and I need to learn to be the son she deserves. Amelia, I need you in this process not only because you're an excellent professional, but because you are the bridge between us, the person my mother trusts, the person she calls when she's afraid. You became more family to her in a few months than I have been in years. Please agree to stay. Not for me, I don't deserve anything, but for her because my mother needs you and because deep down, I also need to learn from you what it means to truly care, to truly love, to truly protect. I promise everything will be different. You will have total authority. No one will ever question your decisions about her care again. Please, Amelia, please. Theodore stopped, tears streaming down his face as he waited for her response. Amelia looked at Charlotte, who nodded with tears in her eyes, clearly moved by her son's words. The decision wasn't difficult. I accept, but with some conditions regarding Mrs. Charlotte's care, Amelia said firmly. Theodore agreed before even hearing the conditions. The hours passed quickly with arrangements being made. Theodore hired lawyers to ensure Violet would face justice fully. More evidence emerged, including money diverted from Charlotte's account and attempts to alter the will. The police informed them that Violet would be indicted on multiple charges, including elder abuse, assault, and fraud. Amelia learned that other families had similar experiences with Violet in previous jobs. The woman was a serial predator of vulnerable elderly people. Meanwhile, Charlotte slept peacefully for the first time in months, knowing she was finally safe. Amelia remained by her side, fulfilling her silent promise. "You are my guardian, Amelia," Charlotte murmured before falling asleep. Amelia held her hand until she was deeply asleep. The next day, Anna arrived from Canada, running straight from the airport to the hospital. The reunion between grandmother and granddaughter was emotional, with tears, hugs, and requests for forgiveness from both sides. Anna was a woman in her 30s, with the same blue eyes as Charlotte. She explained that she had distanced herself due to disagreements with Theodore about business, but that she had never stopped loving her grandmother. Amelia discreetly began to leave the room to give the family privacy, but Charlotte called her back. Anna hugged Amelia, profusely thanking her for saving her grandmother. Theodore entered at that moment, and for the first time in years the Green family was reunited. "Amelia is part of this family now," Charlotte firmly declared. Everyone agreed without hesitation. In the following days, the hospital routine was established. Amelia coordinated Charlotte's care while Theodore and Anna took turns visiting. The transformation in Theodore was remarkable. He was attentive, present, and genuinely trying to repair years of neglect. He even brought old photo albums, spending hours with Charlotte reminiscing about better times. Anna decided to stay in Brazil indefinitely, wanting to make up for lost time. She and Amelia became close, united by their love for Charlotte. Dr. Carlos visited daily, monitoring Charlotte's physical and emotional recovery. News about Violet's arrest had spread, and many people sent messages of support. "I'm surrounded by true love now," Charlotte said on a sunny afternoon. Amelia smiled, knowing it was true. A week later, Charlotte was discharged from the hospital. Theodore had prepared the entire house, installing security cameras, support bars, and even hiring a team of physiotherapists. Amelia would be the general coordinator, with full authority over Charlotte's care. On the day of discharge, a small party was organized in the mansion's garden. The roses that Charlotte loved so much were in full bloom, and she cried when she saw them. Amelia had taken care of them during her absence, fulfilling her promise. Anna had prepared her grandmother's favorite dish, and even Theodore tried to cook, with comical but touching results. Sitting in her favorite chair in the garden, Charlotte held Amelia's hands. "You are my true family now. You gave me back my life," Charlotte said emotionally. Amelia gently embraced the elderly woman. Violet's trial took place months later, with Amelia, Theodore, and other former nurses testifying. Violet was sentenced to years in prison, her facade of the perfect wife completely destroyed. Theodore obtained a divorce and donated a significant amount to elder protection organizations. Charlotte, fully recovered, testified courageously, her voice strong as she described the abuse. The media covered the case extensively, raising awareness about elder abuse in wealthy families. Amelia was recognized for her courage, but she always redirected attention back to Charlotte. The Green Mansion had transformed into a place of love and care, with Anna living there permanently and Amelia coming every day. "Justice has been served," Charlotte said on the day of the sentence. Amelia agreed, feeling that the nightmare had finally ended. 6 months had passed since the trial, and the Green Mansion breathed a completely different atmosphere. Amelia walked through the sunny garden, guiding Charlotte in her morning physiotherapy exercises, the air perfumed with the scent of roses blooming in abundance. The elderly woman had regained not only healthy weight and color, but mainly the joy of living that seemed lost forever. Her steps were firm now, leaning on Amelia more out of affection than actual necessity. The spring sun gently warmed their faces as they followed the familiar path of Portuguese stones, passing by the fountain that now joyfully spurted crystalline water. Amelia observed with deep professional and personal satisfaction how Charlotte flexed her arms without pain, how her blue eyes sparkled while watching the birds at the feeder that Anna had installed. The sound of childish laughter echoed through the gate, and Amelia smiled as she recognized the voice. "Mum, Grandma Charlotte, I'm back from school with a surprise," shouted Olivia, running through the garden. Amelia felt her heart warm at the naturalness of that scene. Olivia, now 6 years old, ran toward them in the private school uniform that Theodore had insisted on paying for, her dark hair flying in the wind. The girl had become an integral part of this reconstructed family, bringing a young and cheerful energy that infected everyone in the house. Charlotte opened her arms to receive the child, who jumped into her lap with learned care, knowing to be gentle with her heart grandma. Amelia observed the interaction with teary eyes, remembering how months ago she feared losing her daughter for trying to protect Charlotte. Now, Olivia had not just one, but several grandparent and uncle figures in her life. The girl took a colorful drawing from her backpack, showing all the people in the house together in the garden, with enormous flowers and a smiling sun. Theodore appeared on the porch, setting aside the book he had been reading aloud to his mother moments before. "Olivia, my angel, what a beautiful drawing. It deserves to go to our special gallery on the refrigerator," Theodore said with genuine affection. Olivia smiled proudly, running to hug him too. Theodore's transformation was perhaps the most impressive of all. The workaholic businessman had drastically reduced his office hours, delegating more responsibilities to dedicate time to his family. He actively participated in family therapy sessions, had learned to cook Charlotte's favorite dishes, and every afternoon dedicated at least 2 hours exclusively to his mother. Amelia had witnessed his journey of self-discovery and repentance, seeing him cry during therapy sessions when confronting years of emotional neglect. Now he sat on the garden bench, pulling Charlotte to sit beside him while Olivia settled between them. Anna emerged from the kitchen, carrying a tray with tea and homemade cookies, her face radiant with the happiness of having recovered her family. She had completely abandoned her life in Canada, finding in Brazil not only her grandmother, but a renewed purpose. "Amelia, come sit with us. The chamomile tea is perfect, just the way you like it," Anna called affectionately. Amelia joined them, feeling truly part of that family. Charlotte picked up the photo album that was on the wrought iron table, a new volume they had started after her recovery. Each page told a story of rebirth, of rebuilt bonds, and new ones formed. There were photos of Charlotte's birthday, celebrated with a garden party with all the former nurses who had testified at the trial, photos of Olivia learning to make cookies with Charlotte, her small hands covered in flour, Theodore and Charlotte in their therapy sessions in the park, walking arm in arm, Anna teaching her grandmother to use the tablet for video calls, and Amelia in almost all of them, no longer in the corners like an employee but in the center, as family. Charlotte ran her fingers over a specific photo taken on the day she had received definitive discharge from physiotherapy. Everyone was embracing, smiling, genuinely happy. "You know what impresses me most about these photos, Amelia?" Charlotte asked softly. Amelia leaned in to hear better, curious. "It's that in all of them we're touching each other, hugging, holding hands close," continued Charlotte, her voice choked with emotion. Amelia immediately understood the profound meaning of those words, remembering how Charlotte would shrink at the slightest touch when it all began. The trauma of physical abuse had left the elderly woman afraid of human contact, associating touch with pain. It took months of patience, gentle and consensual touches, rebuilding trust in physical affection. Now Charlotte was the first to offer hugs, hold hands, caress faces. Theodore, hearing his mother's observation, approached and kissed her forehead with infinite tenderness. Anna hugged her grandmother from behind, and Olivia climbed onto Charlotte's lap, nestling like a kitten. Amelia felt tears streaming down as she witnessed that moment of pure love and healing. "The touch of love heals all wounds, Grandma," said Olivia with the innocent wisdom of children. Charlotte laughed, the crystalline sound echoing through the garden. A car approached through the gate, and Amelia recognized Dr. Carlos's vehicle. He had become not just Charlotte's doctor, but a close friend of the family, visiting regularly not out of professional obligation, but genuine affection. The doctor got out carrying a cardboard box, his face showing a mixture of seriousness and satisfaction. Amelia stood up to receive him, curious about the unexpected visit. He greeted everyone warmly, but his eyes fixed on Amelia with particular intensity. Charlotte noticed the changing atmosphere and straightened in her chair, always perceptive despite her age. The doctor placed the box on the table and began to speak, his voice laden with meaning. Everyone drew closer, sensing that something important was about to be revealed. "Amelia, remember when I asked for your documents last month for that routine check?" the doctor began. Amelia nodded, suddenly apprehensive. "Well, I have a confession to make," continued Dr. Carlos, carefully opening the box. Inside were documents, certificates, and what appeared to be an official letter with a university emblem. Amelia took the papers with trembling hands, her eyes widening as she read the contents. It was a full scholarship for medical school at one of the best universities in the country, obtained through a special program for healthcare professionals with exceptional merit. The doctor had secretly submitted Amelia's story, her courage and dedication to the scholarship committee. Theodore rose emotionally. Charlotte brought her hands to her face, and Anna hugged Amelia. The letter specifically mentioned her heroism in the Charlotte Green case and how she exemplified the highest values of medicine. "Dr. Carlos, I cannot accept this. It's too much," protested Amelia, tears flowing freely. The doctor held her hands with paternal firmness. "Amelia, you are already a doctor in your heart. You just need the diploma to recognize what we all already know," insisted Dr. Carlos, his voice full of conviction. Theodore immediately spoke up, promising that Amelia would have flexible hours to study, that the family would cover all additional costs, that Olivia would always be welcome in the house during classes. Anna offered to help with studies. She had training in biology and could be a tutor. Charlotte took Amelia's hands, her blue eyes shining with maternal pride. The elderly woman had dreamed of seeing her own granddaughter pursue medicine, and now saw in Amelia the fulfillment of that dream in a different way. Olivia jumped with joy, shouting that her mother would be a doctor. The weight of the opportunity was overwhelming, but Amelia could feel the unconditional support of everyone around her. "My dream was always to be a doctor, but I thought it was too late," confessed Amelia through tears. Charlotte squeezed her hands firmly. "It's never too late to realize dreams, dear. You taught me that," said Charlotte with determination. Amelia looked around, seeing the hopeful faces of her chosen family, all waiting for her decision. The afternoon sun created a golden halo around them, as if the universe itself was blessing that moment. Amelia thought about her journey, from that first terrible day when she found Charlotte fallen, through the horror of the discoveries, the desperation of the threats, to the victory of justice. Each moment had been a test, proof that she had the strength, determination, and compassion needed to be a doctor. She looked at Olivia, imagining the example she would set for her daughter by pursuing her dreams. She looked at Charlotte, who had recovered her life thanks to her persistence, at Theodore, who had completely transformed, at Anna, who had found her way back. "Yes, I accept. I will become a doctor," declared Amelia with a strong voice. The explosion of joy was immediate and contagious. Theodore opened a bottle of champagne he had saved for special occasions, serving even a small sip mixed with juice for Olivia. They toasted in the garden, the sound of clinking glasses mingling with the singing birds. Charlotte rose with Theodore's help and made her own toast, her clear and strong voice echoing through the garden. She spoke about second chances, about how Amelia had not only saved her life, but had rebuilt her family. She mentioned how each person there had been transformed by the courage of a woman who refused to ignore injustice. Anna filmed everything with her phone, creating more memories for the album they never stopped filling. Olivia hugged her mother tightly, whispering that she was proud of her. The moment was interrupted by the sound of the intercom. "Must be the surprise I prepared," Theodore said mysteriously. Everyone turned curiously to see who was arriving. 3 women entered through the gate, and Amelia recognized them immediately. They were the former nurses who had cared for Charlotte before her. Rosa, the lady who had been the first to try to report the abuse, led the group. The women had become close during the trial, united by their shared experience. Theodore had invited them to this special celebration, wanting to thank each one who had tried to protect his mother. Charlotte was moved to see them, embracing each one affectionately. They had risked much by testifying, facing their own traumas to ensure justice was done. Rosa approached Amelia with a proud smile, holding her hands firmly. The two had developed a special friendship, united by their determination to protect Charlotte. "You accomplished what none of us had the courage to do all the way through," Rosa said emotionally. Amelia hugged each of them, feeling the power of female unity. The afternoon transformed into an impromptu celebration. Anna and Theodore rushed to prepare more food, while Charlotte entertained her former caregivers with funny stories about her recovery. Olivia had become the center of attention, performing dance routines and showing her drawings to the visitors. Amelia observed everything with a heart overflowing with gratitude. Less than a year ago, she was just a nurse struggling to pay the bills, caring for an abused elderly woman in a cold mansion. Now she was surrounded by love, with a promising career ahead and a family she had chosen and that had chosen her back. Dr. Carlos approached her during the party, discreetly handing her another envelope. Inside was a personal letter of recommendation from him for the hospital's residency program. "When you graduate, you'll have a guaranteed position on my team," he promised. Amelia hugged him, without words, to express her gratitude. As the sun began to set, tinting the sky with golden and rosy hues, Charlotte asked for everyone's attention. She was standing in the center of the garden, looking years younger than her actual age, radiating a strength she had completely recovered. Theodore helped her stay balanced, but it was clear she barely needed the support. Anna brought a velvet box that Charlotte had asked her to fetch from her room. The elderly woman opened the box, revealing an antique pearl necklace, a family heirloom that had passed through generations. Everyone watched in respectful silence as Charlotte approached Amelia. The necklace was beautiful, the pearls shining with a soft luster in the evening light. Charlotte lifted the necklace, her eyes fixed on Amelia. "This necklace belonged to my mother, and to her mother before that, always passed to the daughter who demonstrated the greatest courage and love," Charlotte said solemnly. Amelia began to protest, but Charlotte gently silenced her. "Amelia, you are the daughter my heart chose, the daughter destiny sent me when I needed most," Charlotte continued, placing the necklace around Amelia's neck with firm hands. The weight of the pearls was significant, not just physically but symbolically. Amelia touched the necklace with reverence, understanding the magnitude of the gesture. Theodore and Anna smiled in approval, without any trace of jealousy or resentment. They understood that Amelia had earned that place through actions, not blood. Olivia ran to see the necklace up close, marveling at the shining pearls. Rosa and the other former nurses applauded emotionally, witnessing that moment of recognition. Dr. Carlos discreetly wiped away a tear, touched by the scene. "Now it's official. You're a green in heart," declared Charlotte. Amelia hugged her for a long time, both crying with emotion. Night fell gently over the garden, and decorative lights that Anna had installed turned on automatically, creating a magical atmosphere. The small gathering continued under the stars, with soft conversations and occasional laughter. Olivia had fallen asleep in Charlotte's lap, completely safe and comfortable. Amelia watched her daughter sleep in the arms of the woman who had become her grandmother, amazed at the twists and turns of life. Theodore brought blankets for everyone, and they remained in the garden, no one wanting to break the magic of the moment. Anna began to softly sing a lullaby that Charlotte used to sing to her as a child, her melodious voice floating in the night air. One by one, everyone joined in the singing, creating an imperfect but beautiful harmony. "You know, Amelia, you taught me that family isn't just about blood. It's about who's there when we need them most," said Charlotte, looking at the stars. Amelia hugged Charlotte tighter, knowing she had found her true home. The former nurses began to say goodbye, each one hugging Amelia and Charlotte for a long time before leaving. Rosa was the last to leave, holding Amelia's hands tightly. She whispered that Amelia had given courage to all of them, that several had reported other cases of abuse after Violet's trial. A protection network had formed, inspired by the courage of a nurse who refused to remain silent. Dr. Carlos also said goodbye, reminding Amelia that classes would start in 2 months and that he would help her with study materials. Theodore accompanied him to the car, profusely thanking him for everything. When he returned, he found the women still in the garden, Olivia now awake and asking to hear the story of how Amelia had saved Grandma Charlotte. "That's a story I never tire of hearing," said Theodore, sitting down again. Amelia smiled, beginning to narrate a softened version for the child. Charlotte gently interrupted her, taking Amelia's hand. She wanted to tell the story from her perspective, of how she had lost hope, thinking she would die alone and afraid. She spoke about the first time she saw Amelia, how something in her eyes had given her hope. She described the small acts of kindness, the gentle touches, the words of comfort whispered. Theodore listened with renewed attention, noticing details he didn't know. Anna discreetly recorded, knowing that this testimony was precious. Charlotte spoke about the constant fear, but also about how Amelia had been her beacon in the darkness. Olivia listened with wide eyes, proud of her heroic mother. When Charlotte finished, everyone was emotional again. "You didn't just save me, Amelia. You gave me back the will to live," concluded Charlotte. The silence that followed was filled only by the sound of crickets and the gentle wind in the leaves. Theodore stood up and went inside the house, returning with a folder of documents. He had prepared something special, working with his lawyers for weeks. They were papers establishing an educational fund in Amelia and Olivia's names, ensuring not only Amelia's medical education, but also Olivia's entire education through university. There were also documents officially making Amelia part of the family's will, with generous provisions for her future. Amelia tried to refuse, finding it excessive, but Theodore was firm. He explained that it wasn't charity or payment. It was the recognition that Amelia was family, and family took care of each other. Charlotte supported her son, saying it was the least they could do. Anna showed her own documents, naming Amelia and Olivia as beneficiaries of her life insurance. "You gave us a family back. Let us return the favor," Anna said simply. Amelia was overwhelmed by the generosity. The night advanced, but no one wanted it to end. Olivia had created an improvised theater presentation, acting out the story of how her mother had saved Charlotte, with Theodore and Anna playing supporting roles and causing laughter with their exaggerated performances. Charlotte watched with delight, enthusiastically applauding each scene. Amelia realized that these simple moments, these shared laughs, were worth more than any amount of money. The trauma of the past had been transformed into strength, fear into courage, loneliness into unity. When Olivia ended her presentation with a big group hug, everyone spontaneously joined in. There, under the stars in the garden that had witnessed so much pain and now overflowed with joy, they were truly family. "I want to make a request," Charlotte suddenly announced. Everyone turned attentively to her. "I want you to promise that no matter what happens, you will always take care of each other," asked Charlotte, her voice strong despite the emotion. One by one, everyone solemnly promised. Theodore promised to be the brother Amelia never had. Anna promised to be the sister and best friend. Olivia promised to be the most loving granddaughter in the world. Amelia promised to care for everyone with the same love and dedication she had shown from the beginning. Dr. Carlos, who had not yet left, promised to be a mentor and friend forever. The promises floated in the night air like sacred vows. Charlotte smiled, satisfied, knowing she had built something indestructible from what were once ruins. The house clock struck midnight, but time seemed to have stopped in that garden. "This is our new beginning," Charlotte declared. Everyone agreed, knowing it was true. Amelia looked around, engraving every detail in her memory. The illuminated garden, the roses she had faithfully tended, the fountain that now symbolized renewal instead of empty opulence. Her daughter safe and happy, surrounded by love. Charlotte strong and healthy, free from fear. Theodore transformed into a better man. Anna fulfilled and at peace. She touched the pearl necklace on her neck, feeling the weight of responsibility and love. She thought about her unlikely journey, from a nurse struggling to survive to a future doctor with a loving family. The fear of losing Olivia had transformed into Olivia, gaining grandparents and uncles. The threat of destruction had become the foundation of something beautiful. "Thank you," Amelia whispered to the universe. Charlotte squeezed her hand, understanding. When finally everyone began to retire for sleep, Amelia stayed a moment longer in the garden, alone under the starry canopy of night. The stars shone intensely, each one like a silent witness to her extraordinary journey. She walked slowly to the bench where everything had begun to change, where Charlotte used to sit alone and frightened, and now was the favorite spot for family gatherings. Amelia ran her fingers over the wrought iron, feeling the cold texture of the metal, so different from the warmth that now emanated from that space. She thought about everything she had learned in those intense months. About courage, not the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. About doing the right thing even when it's dangerous, when it would be easier to turn your back and protect only yourself. About how true love manifests in action, not just in beautiful words or empty promises. About how family is really about who is present in the most difficult moments, who holds your hand in the darkness and refuses to let go. The tears came gently, not from sadness but from deep gratitude. "Thank you for giving me strength when I thought I had none," she whispered to the night wind. The garden seemed to respond with the soft rustling of leaves. Olivia appeared at the glass door, already in pink pajamas with butterfly prints, her little eyes heavy with sleep but searching for her mother. Her bare feet made small sounds on the marble floor, and she rubbed her eyes with her closed little hands. Amelia felt her heart overflow with love at the sight of her daughter, remembering the terror she had felt at the thought of losing her. Now Olivia was safe, loved, with a bright future guaranteed by the generosity of this unlikely family. Amelia picked her up, feeling the comforting weight of her daughter, the sweet smell of children's shampoo in her hair, the little arms that automatically wrapped around her neck. Olivia rested her head on Amelia's shoulder, her small body completely relaxing in the safety of her mother's arms. As she walked into the house that was now truly a home, Amelia heard the sounds that had replaced the oppressive silence of before. Charlotte and Theodore were talking softly in the living room about plans for Olivia's birthday. Anna was preparing tea for everyone in the kitchen, humming that same lullaby. The sounds of a real family, imperfect but genuine, united not by obligation but by choice. "Mommy, you're the bravest person in the world," Olivia murmured sleepily against her neck, her sweet and tired little voice penetrating straight into Amelia's heart. The child adjusted her arms around her mother's neck, snuggling even closer, as if wanting to merge with her in an eternal embrace. Amelia stopped for a moment in the middle of the staircase, too moved to continue immediately. Her daughter's innocent words carried more weight than Olivia could imagine. They validated every difficult choice, every moment of terror faced, every tear shed in the solitude of night when Amelia questioned if she was doing the right thing. Olivia didn't know about the dark details, the threats Amelia had faced, the paralyzing fear of losing her that had almost made her give up. For the child, her mother was simply a heroine who had saved Grandma Charlotte. But for Amelia, those words were absolution. They were a reward. They were confirmation that all the sacrifice had been worth it. Amelia kissed her daughter's forehead lingeringly, feeling the soft, warm skin, breathing in the sweet perfume of protected childhood. "And you, my love, are my greatest source of courage," whispered Amelia, knowing that Olivia had already fallen asleep, but needing to say the words anyway. The tears that ran down her face were of pure gratitude for having her daughter safe in her arms, for having a family that loved them, for having found strength she didn't even know she possessed. Now tell me in the comments where you're from and tell me, did you like this story? Then subscribe to the channel, leave your like and check out the next one waiting for you here on the screen. I'll see you there.